everyone.
Good morning.
It's so nice to have all of you guys here this beautiful morning, where we're going to be studying a very important passage of the Gospel, which is the blessed are the meek and the peace-loving. This is particularly relevant for nowadays, what we're going through in our world. Tensions, all the politics, and both interpersonal and inter-countries, and we're all connected, as you know. So this is I think this is a very appropriate timing for this lecture. And in this beautiful day of summer, where we're starting to have cold mornings, so it's kind of a warning that something's about to come. It's just a warning. Okay. Let us all warm our hearts here, and also get ready, because we're going to have a lunch and learn today. So we have lunch afterwards, and it's an opportunity for us to get together and to support our Spiritist Center. As you know, this is one of the ways we can fundraise and keep this going for all of us, right? So as to get started, I'll ask Teresa to come and do the prayer for us, the reading and the prayer, and then right after that, we're going to have Denise with the lecture and questions to come afterwards. Thank you all.
So, from the book Happy Life by Divaldo Pereira Franco and the Spirit of João de Angelis. Take a walk in the fresh air. Calmly rediscover the nature that blesses your life. Relax and escape from the turmoil you are in, and let your imagination soar. Avoid crowded places when you go out, and breathe the balsamic oxygen of the forest, the mountains, the sea. Rethink your ideas, relax, and bless life as it offers itself to you. Your present existence is rich in what you need to be happy. So let us all now elevate our thoughts and our hearts to God our Creator, to Jesus our Master, to all the benefactors here present, and thank for the opportunity of once more being here together to learn, to receive a little bit of God's mercy that enlightens us every day. I'd like to ask the benefactors of this house to shine your light and your intuition over our friend Denise, so she can bring us a lecture that can help us all to learn the laws of love and charity. And so be it.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
I'm so happy to be here today, this beautiful day, as Michael told in the beginning. We know summer in Canada doesn't last that long. So today I'll be here talking a little bit about the blessed are the meek and peace-loving. And you're going to see that this nature cycle, it's also part of how we can achieve this meek and peace lover inside of ourselves. So first of all, this passage is in the Bible. It's part of the Sermon on the Mountain, and it says it's in Matthew chapter 5, where Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." So when Jesus says inherit the earth, he's promising a future, a reward that is coming in this future earth. And as Spiritists, we know that planet Earth is going through a process of renovation. We are living as a planet of expiations and start to become a regeneration planet. So this is basically this inheritance of the earth. It's not that they are waiting for that. Actually, when you embrace this meek and peace part of yourself, we are preparing yourself to be part of that planet. Because in that new planet, we will not have space for violence anymore. We will not have space for all these little things and little fights. It's time to progress. It's time for the ones that are willing to go forward and embrace the positive aspect and embrace this Meek aspect. And this will bring the preparation that we all need in order to face this new planet that is coming in our way, right? And this happy world is the world whose inhabitants possess this gentleness and purity of heart. So we start to see these new kids incarnating with messages of hope, of peace, that, of course, we are in a new environment of social media. Everything goes online. You have access to what a kid in Tibet is saying, something that in our childhood we didn't have. But now you can see this message of acceptance, of forgiveness, of being friend, of cooperation is starting to build up in a society as a common sense, as something that is supposed to be the original rule, right? And unfortunately, even though we find this passage in the Bible, we know that in the history of religions, Christians and so many others, this passage was kind of forget. They used other passages of the Bible in order to fight for what they believed was the right way to do things. So when you think about the historic aspect of religions, we know that throughout biblical history, we see this curious counterpoint. Both the religious people and those even that who did not follow or believed in the message of Jesus Christ always guided their conduct by violence, by force. The way that empires were built, the way that Catholicism was built. We know we had, even in the Old Testament, you already see Christianity using the force and the violence in order to what they believed, to achieve the results, right? And even like when you look in the history, you have the Bartholomew's Night where killed almost like 50,000 Protestants in Europe. We have the Inquisition, we have the Crusades, we have so many other. These days we have the Rohingya population be completely like living as refugees because they were completely expelled from their country due to this religious difference. And we have the Gaza plague. We have so many all over the world using religion and using certain concepts in order to express their violence and use violence in order to achieve their goals, right? And they really forget the concept that Jesus gave to Peter when told him, sheathe your sword, for he who wounds with iron will be wounded. So Jesus, he never used a violence as a form to convince anyone. He wasn't there to convince it through violence, through force. And there was a shock, right? There was a shock for the people of that time because that's everything that they learned since the beginning was people that was able to use these violent methods, but was able to like maintain power through violence. How to silence others through violence. And it's this fear that it's played even in our days. We see political leaders playing with these fear things that society have as a population that everybody still has this preservation instinct inside ourselves, right? We have this thing that, okay, why am I going to fight and put myself there if like I could get hurt? We have this, I need to protect me and my family, my closest ones. We have this instinct. And that's how violence plays this role, that puts the fear inside our minds and make ourselves feel that it's better to be silenced and suffer but be alive than to speak out and face the consequence, right? And as soon as the Master Jesus left the planet Earth, we saw that these movements of Christians using violence start to become more and more common and repeat itself throughout history. So we have a good book. This is Renounce. I don't know, we do have it in English, I couldn't find it. If we have this book in English, do we?
Yes, we do.
We do? Yeah.
Renunciation.
Renunciation. Okay, yeah. I couldn't find the, so we do have it in English as well. And in this book, Emmanuel makes a reference to the process of violence and truculence that Christians suffered. So the romance begins with this religious persecution, right? It's from religious persecution that is born countries like America, as we know, like US, Brazil. They were born from people running away from these persecutions. And they run to this new country in order to live their faith without the fear, because they were being persecuted. And in this book is one of the incarnations of Emmanuel. He brings all these histories of, it's a very interesting book, and brings these historical aspects to us, right? But when I see these histories, when I see it repeating itself, we ask ourselves, like, why as incarnates we do have this kind of blind faith in violence? Because if you think, there is a reason for that, right? Violence quickly solves any problem. It's a rapid thing. If you don't want a kid to speak, shut your mouth now, you hold the hand, the poor kid will be terrorized, will come. But like, at the same time, it solves it quickly, yes, but even though it resolves it fast, it resolves it badly and for a short time. Because even though you are able to contain that moment, that thing will repeat, and it's going to repeat again. As soon as the feeling of danger is gone, the tendency is try to repeat again, right? And that's why, like, during the history of Christianity, so many movements, like, you cannot speak out loud, but like these communities start, like, we're still going to pursue what we believe is right. Because it's not a matter, the violence is a matter that cannot convey as like a conversion. It's like convince temporarily that, okay, I need to give a break in order to preserve myself, in order to like kind of get rid of this feeling that I could be killed. But at the same time, it does not really convert someone, right? In times of crisis, the incarnate tends to abandon the reason and the logic and goes to violence. Anyone that ever watched like the zombie apocalypse movies out there, the first thing is that everybody goes wild, like, this food is for myself, everybody starts to fight each other, everybody, in a moment of desperation, it's really hard to maintain the reasoning. And it's easy for us that we never went through, probably none of us here went through a situation of real desperation. But if you think about the refugee crisis all over the world, like 65 million people like are running away from their own countries, they don't have where to go. Yesterday I was watching this video, an actor was in this, it's a ship, there is like international waters, waiting for any country willing to receive them. They are on the sea, some people are sending sentiments to them, but they don't have where to go, nobody wants to receive them. And this is like a really desperate situation, right? So it's really, it's unimaginable for us in our comfortable positions right here, like how can we speak up for them, right? But it's this situation, this violence that makes people run away, that makes people, okay, I'm going to leave everything behind because everything that I can carry with me is just my life, and that's what matters. And they're trying to do that, right? And the violence, it's everything that contemporary society expects is a quick result, even though that presents deficient solutions, as today we know, is maximize your profits. People don't care about long-term employee quality of life. It is starting now, this idea, but we know like big giants out there, they do say things, but they don't do things with their own employees, right? It's really easy to put out there a speech that is just to like receive a praise and comply with regulations, but in the dynamic of every day, what we are demanding is to have quick results. And this violence method, this fear, like, okay, you are a salesman, if you don't meet your quota, you're gone. That creates like, I have a job and I need to meet that goal. So doesn't matter what I have to do, I'm going to do it. If I need to bother everybody, what I have to do, I'm going to do it because I need to keep my job. It's always these expectations and the quick results, even time more and more and more. And that's how 1% of the population holds half of the fortune of the entire world, right? And when we try to solve these issues in quick time, that's what I talked in the moment, in the beginning. We are trying to break with the law of God, because there is a law of time that nature teaches us. As he told, like the mornings are starting to get colder, we know what is coming, but it's a cycle of the natures. If you want to have lettuce, you plant the lettuce today, in 2-3 weeks you have lettuce to eat. But like if you want to have coffee and you have the seed to a coffee today, you're going to wait 8-10 years before you can have the coffee of that tree in your tea, in your cup. So you need to think that everything requires and demands a time. And as a society, we keep fighting against here. And we try to get the resolutions for questions that demand years and years. We want to take them in 1 minute. We create artificial intelligence to analyze all algorithms and possibilities in order to solve issues that only time can solve, right? Yeah, and we interpret that the one who has the power to intimidate and impose as the best person to solve the situations. And normally these persons that has these characteristics are the one that keeps being put in the charge positions as directors, as managers, and that sets a tone for an environment that everybody else that is under that chain of command needs to follow. Because we still see this figure of this person that demands, that is fearful, that is as the person aptitude to change. When you see someone with this mixed aspect of a calm person, of someone understandable, someone very quiet, we have a tendency to look at that as a weak person. We think that if someone doesn't give an answer in 5 minutes, it's because they don't know. They don't know. Because if you know, you say right away. People don't want to wait and analyze and feel things before. They need to say, this needs to be logic, this needs to be rational. And nothing, not even in work, life, or person. Everything is combined. There is also, this is 2 wings, right? The rational part, and the emotional part. They make, when we think only about the rational part and look only after the profits, we are compromising our emotional part. Because you cannot achieve both at the same time if you don't compromise each one of the wings. If you only think that this wing is the important one and you got the big wing, guy, we're not going to fly. We're going to get stuck because our other wing is getting shorter and shorter and smaller, right? So this is a message. That's why the message of Jesus is extremely bitter sometimes and indigestible, especially to the Christians, because many of us try to escape the misgivings that the gospel calls to us to show fearful, anxious, insecure apostles about the figure of Jesus. They could not understand how does he think that he's going to bring this kingdom of heaven here, just talking to the homeless, talk to the sick. Like, he doesn't connect to the powerful people. If you think, like, if anyone has the opportunity to read, there's a Spiritist book about the life of Judah, the Iscariotes, it's like, you see, his mind is that. How could he lead us if he's not talking to the powerful people? And that's when everything happened, right? He went to the back channels, trying to do negotiations in the name of Jesus, and thinking that there was the best way in order to achieve the most successful rate for that plan. But Jesus knew this is not what I'm here for. I'm not here to convince anyone. Even if you see other religions, they expected this Messiah to come in this black horse with a blade, like a flame blade in his hand, that will overpower anyone in the entire world. And like, Jesus is not. He came in that little mule, with a branch in his hand, going inside Jerusalem, and everybody's like, and in that day there was thousands of people following him. Even though the following day, one night was enough to everybody change their mind. But they got received by the people in that figure of peace. He didn't came with, I'm not here to war, I'm not here to convince and submit anyone to my will. I'm here to explain it. And unfortunately at the time, and even our days, just a few people are willing to listen and specific to live his teachings, right? So if we want to understand a little bit better, it's good to do this kind of parallel, right? Because spirituality told us that Brazil is the heart of the world and the gospel country. But you look to Brazil nowadays, and during my whole life, and I think my parents' life, it's always a place full of violence. Violence is always one of the main issues of every Brazilian that comes out of the country. And a lot of people, first thing they say, yeah, is violence. I just met a friend, she told she was working as a doctor, and she told, I couldn't operate as a doctor because people was coming, she was in the public area, and I had to do, I'm not a surgeon, and a guy make me do a surgery with a gun at my head. How can somebody work like that? A lot of people is running away through the violence. It's not just for the last couple of years. It's something that's building up for years. We know also corruption is big. So how could the spiritual God say that it's the heart of the world, it's the gospel country, right? Because we need to understand it's completely connected to the stage that the world is right now, right? This Messiah that didn't come with an army, that didn't take power by force, and bring this country as a country to be the heart of the world. Why? That makes deep questions, right? And if we look at the Spirit's book on the question 100, right? They show the characteristics of the imperfect spirits. And it's a big answer. It's a long answer. But basically, they say they are deficient in their materiality. The predominance is the matter over the spirit. It's that kind of we are still in the stage that the matter is the one that still causes the biggest impact in most of us, right? But when we start to evolve as pure spirits, the things completely shift, because for the pure spirits, it's the absolute prediction of the spirit over matter. So it's kind of really that, imagine that balance, that old balance that we used to put weights on one side, and we put the thing that we buy on the other side, trying to find that equilibrium. But in this case, it's really we start with putting everything about matter, causing that impact into yourself, and then gradually, because we cannot just sleep one way and woke up, oh my gosh, I'm pure now. Look, I'm a pure spirit. That's so nice. I didn't have any effort. I had a dream, and now look me. I'm going out in unicorns and rainbows around. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. We need to work for it. It's a process, right? And just a little part of the answer for the question 100. to clarify a little bit more, they say to us, we have, however, to remark that spirits do not, in all cases, belong exclusively to such and such a class. Their progress in knowledge and purity being only accomplished gradually, and often for a time, more in the one than in the other. They may unite the characteristics of several subdivisions, a point which is easily settled by observing their language and their acts. So what we do say, what we do, that's what really matters, and that's how this progression is going to start, right? Another beautiful book that talks a lot about this progression pathway that we always need to go through, that all of us need to go through, is a book, Paul and Stephen. Because one beautiful passage is when Stephen is arrested, he goes and he makes a speech to the Synedrion. And Paul of Tarsus asks him, what Messiah is that who had no power to break free? Didn't have enough strength to even get off the cross? Is this creature without power, without force, that you want us to follow? He's questioning Stephen about, you really want us to follow? Like, you are really fighting, you are really going to give your life for someone that didn't have any sort of power, that was like a weak person. That's the analogy that most of the people at that time were thinking. Oh my gosh, these Christians, they are crazy. They're following a guy that has no power, that even though he did the miracles, but for them, he was still a weak person, because for them, the fact that someone wasn't using violence and not being aggressive, even if he didn't start, even if the other person started the aggression, and Jesus didn't respond, for them was a sign of he's weak, he doesn't want to face, he's not brave enough. Because that's what we think, right? That puff up person, come, don't come, I'm Spiritist, come. And it's not how it works. And Jesus, during all his life here, he never had like this physical confrontation that, yeah, we're going to fight, and then I'm going to convince you through fight that I'm right. And we do this until our days, right? But when Paul Tarsus questioned the power of Jesus, the fact that he wasn't willing to fight and calling him a weak, Stephen answered in a very beautiful metaphor. It's a short one, and probably most of them could not understand. But what he said was, and what did you expect? A dominator who came in a chariot that could topple over the first hole in the road? So he basically compared, why do you want him to come in this powerful like spaceship that is going to stop work because it has no fuel? And they couldn't get it, right? They couldn't get it. That his message, what he was living through, what he was doing, wasn't like, I'm not here to show off. I'm not here to convince. I cannot like force someone else's throat to believe in what I believe. I'm living it. I'm showing it. And the ones that feel that is right for them, they are converted. Because this difference between convince and conversion is huge. Someone convinced could say, yeah, it makes sense. But go back to the whole bad vibes. Someone really converted is going to change. And that's what happens with Paul of Tarsus. Because when he has this encounter with Jesus, he gets blind, he questions everything, and he comes back, and he is converted. He dedicates his life to Jesus' teachings. Even though he has a lot of background and still put a little bit of his upbringing in his journey, he is putting himself as, I'm willing to be an instrument of Jesus' teachings on earth. I'm here for that, right? And we also need to think that when Stephen does this parallel about like this big thing coming and like an accident happens, also brings to us this idea that he was trying to bring is that, and you have all this power, you have everything here, but life is fragile. What you have in your hands today, you could be incarnate now, and in a few hours you'll go out and you'll be here, but not incarnate anymore. So this fragility should be sufficient to realize that no power emanating from matter can compare with the simplest power emanating from the Spirit. No matter what titles you bear, what properties you have, nothing of that matter. How many soldiers they had at it? Because all of them, inevitable, will encounter death. The material things will perish. Our things, like our body, will perish. So when you put this concept of fragility of life ahead, we see that every moment counts. Every encounter counts. Every lesson counts. We, as a society, even though we are like in this quick, we need to have this quick reaction, there is a big part of society that loves procrastination. Netflix knows that, and so many other streaming devices. How anyone sometimes stop and think, oh my, how many hours did I spend? Because a lot of people binge watch TV shows. We're talking about 8, 10 hours of TV shows in a weekend. It's a lot. And this procrastination comes in a way that we try to forget this fragility, but we really need to make, I think summer here teach me more about that, because I feel like doesn't matter. Like it's summer, we need to enjoy the day, we need to plan and think, and we need to go outside, we need to go to the park. Especially with kids, we don't have time to waste and be procrastinating that much. We need to really to go. But like before, oh my God, like, oh, stay there. Just another one. And now that you don't even need to wait, like it's just like 5 seconds and the new episode comes. I think that if I had Netflix during my teenage years, I'll not be here talking today. It's hard. It's hard to fight against. It's some characteristics that we have with it, right? And also this fragility, this death, brings this concept that religions bring to us, right? That death in the biblical symbolism is the day of the great judgment of the incarnate. This is a day when we all surrender everything that we have in our hands, and then we will be judged by what we have in our hearts, where we live it, the moments that we created, the person that we helped and that helped us, how we try to be this instrument of transformation around our community, around our family, around our friends. Yeah. So therefore the mark of the highest spirits is the affability and the sweetness. If you go to the spiritual words, the spirits word, when you read like so many books, this Meek characteristics, this characteristics of this, it's an evolution characteristic, right, for the spirit. And that is why the work of the gospel has never been a work of convincing. The gospel work from day one was a working of converting and transforming, right? And another thing about these bliss points to the future of the justice on earth. And another great thing that we need to talk is that we think about this Kardec, for example, the one that brings the consolation. We look at him and we see, oh, he was very bright, a clever guy, a scientist, and we look to all these characteristics that makes him a leader. But if you look at him, this soft and peaceful person that he was is a continuation, because he's part what we can call the great caravan of the Redeemer. In the life before he was incarnate, he was burned alive. Burned alive. This is not easy, something easy to go through. Even for him as a evolved spirit, is a hard moment. And even though he passed through that experience, you see that during the consolation work, he never put anything about violence in the spiritism. He never invited anyone to, or if someone said, no, you go and fight, you right back, you yell. But no, it's always, you need to accept the level. He's always talking about free will. He's always talking about the acceptance of You can do the changes for yourself, but you need to accept the choice of the other. You cannot be doing choices for someone else. You need to understand and accept that, right? And it was a completely different speech than other religions that always pray that, okay, if they don't do like we do, they go to hell. The Spiritists don't tell anything like that. They don't talk about heaven, hell, or talk about consequences, the law of cause and effect, right? And if you read like one of the books that talk about correct incarnation, when he had his previous incarnation as a young Rose, he has this moment when he's there, attached, like all the wood around him, the sticks around him, prepared to burn him. And he says that he sees this old lady with like this stick, with very difficulty to walk, coming to his direction, with that look that you did really bad, you deserve what is happening to you. To put the stick there, to put the flames, and he looks at her and he says, holy ignorance. Because he sees in her, like he's not judging her. He's not like, I want you to like triple and fall here and the worst happen to you. He's just admitting that they are ignorant. In their level, in that moment, that they really think that is right. It's going to take years for them to change, but he accepts that. He's not trying to fight back, right? And after his burning, he comes back in this mission of truth, of reason of faith, liberation from the soul of fanaticism and violence. And it's something that you see through all his work. He's always trying to take Spiritism as far as he could for any sort of fanaticism. He's always trying to bring the reason. He's always trying to bring peace. He's always trying to bring compassion. He's always trying to bring the true Christian teachings through his work, right? And there is no trace of violence in his life as an encoder. But there are traces of firmness, but not violence. Okay? So, when you think about nature of time, and all the problems that we live right now, some people could ask themselves, is God lacking power, right, to solve problems? Is God weak? The same way that Paul de Tarsus was questioning Stephen about Jesus' power and Jesus' work, some people ask about God. Is God, because like everything is happening, all this chaos, and God does nothing. Is he really this powerful and everything? But now we go back to our reasoning and our faith. Like, if you think like we are in a solar system, right? We have how many planets here in our solar system? Pluto was taken out, so let's off put 8. From the 8, how many of these planets is expiation and just one? Just us in our system. In our galaxy, we have a lot more planets. And it's just one galaxy between many galaxies. So do you really think that in God's creation he's really worried? No, because he gave us time. And we need to go through all of this through time. Humberto de Campos says, God uses time, not violence. But time takes time. And this time teaches resilience. This time teaches patience. This time teaches how to love, how to understand, right? And that's why the time is the only thing that really resolves issues in a long term. The violence, the quick things, the let's not do anything, is a fix for the short time. The long-term one needs to involve time, needs to involve this resilience. And if we look to nature, all the process of nature are based on time, right? We need to think, like if you want, it's so nice to go to a park today and be in the shadow of a tree, right? But that tree was planted, sometimes I look at the trees, oh my gosh, how many years this one? And I have an app, I'll take a picture, they see. Because that's another beautiful thing about the trees, right? If you cut a tree, you see the rings of the tree growing. And I read this poem once that basically says that sometimes we have these things about age, right? What is appropriate to, like, oh, now I'm this age, so it's appropriate for me to behave in a certain way because, like, now I'm older, so I cannot behave. But basically, it says the same way as the tree has its rings showing the different ages of the tree, the marks of their different ages, inside ourselves, we always will be, we have, like, I have still a 7-year-old inside myself, a 12-year-old. We try sometimes just to put sand on top of it and forget the suffering and sometimes bad experience, and even the feelings, right? It's so, I remember, like, it's funny, now I look to water, here it's cold, I don't want to go inside, but I remember I was like crazy, pool, oh my gosh, I was the one coming out like shaking because I didn't want to leave the pool, I want to stay forever inside the water. These days I don't do anymore, but I still look at my kids doing the same, and that feeling of my 8, 9-year-old is inside myself. I still connect with that kid and look at them and I understand, right? And it's beautiful for us to be able and allow ourselves to connect with this different phase of our life. As these trees, as the nature teaches us, we look at these trees, we look at nature out there, we look at the seasons. I'm from northeast of Brazil, so there, the 4 seasons basically rain or not rain. Winter rains. Summer doesn't rain that much. But the temperature just dropped like 5-6 degrees during the whole year. So my first winter here in Canada was like, I was mesmerized at the magic of the snow. I still these days when I let myself, like, of course, in the back of my mind, oh my God, the commute will be terrible. It's going to be snowing. Is the school bus coming in time? Am I going to read? But at the same time, I still stop myself, take the present. Look how magical it is. It is still so beautiful. The fall coming, the leaves falling from the trees, and the summer, the spring, and the animals, the way they behave. When you see like all the gooses going south, you're like, I want to go too. You know, but it's beautiful. It's nature. It teaches us every day in different way. Every seed needs time to bear fruit. We are seeds. We need this time to bear our own fruit, to maturate, right? There's a time for maturation. No one goes out of the imperfect spirit to become a pure spirit in a jump. We really need to go through this path. We really need to embrace ourselves, be able to, we fail, we keep trying. Look nature, like, it's how it renovates every year, right? And this time thing, at the same way that time sometimes takes time, the time also has a limit of saturation. Even if we choose not to evolve, we come to a moment of saturation, right? And then I bring another book, because books are awesome, you should read all of them. It's a book, Liberation. In this book, it talks a little bit about the saturation moment, because it talks the history of Matilde, and she has been Gregorius' mother. Basically, this book is about Gregorius, but Matilde was Gregorius' mother in a previous life. And she asks Clarencio, one of the guys there, for help. And what she says to him is that, I'm beginning to notice in the soul of my dear son signs of boredom. He was in the threshold for 700 years. And he was starting to get bored. He was starting to get saturated. And that happens because this process of violence, of evil, exhaustion, all these things, they exhaust our spirit in the medium and long term. Why? Because we weren't built to hate. We were not created to be hurting each other, to be like in this toxic, creating this toxic energy against one another, right? We were built to love. And that's why when someone gets this pattern of hate, it affects the soul physically and sickens the spirit. But it's one way, one affects the other, right? I always like to bring a little bit of science, and there is a huge bar of evidence that has connected cancer with emotional health, right? And specifically to high stress levels. There is a lot of evidence out there that connects a mild but chronic feeling of resentment or suppressed anger to cancer, and specifically to breast cancer. They have like a lot of papers bringing this information that these patients, I read this paper in full detail, that they say that extreme suppression of anger was the most commonly identified characteristic of 160 breast cancer patients who are given a detailed psychological interview and self-administered questionnaire. So 160 patients were like in this paper, there are several others, linking this resentment, this suppression of anger, linked to cancer. So see our mind affect our body, and science corroborates with that, right? So resentment is something we should always strive to avoid, so that we can live healthy and happy for many years to come. But it's hard, because it stays in, sometimes it's that process of forgiveness that you need to let it go. But when you see the person, everything comes back, and you're like, oh, I thought that I let it go, but I didn't. And we need to find our path, to find our process, right? We were not spirits designed for hate, for create this aura of envy and contention and spite. We are designed for mutual cooperation, for mutual respect, the gentleness of meekness, right? The Meeks realized that. The ones that achieved this meek characteristic, they achieved that. They realized that. Nobody is going to build softness just because you find that softness is beautiful. Oh, it's beautiful to be soft, I'm going to try. And then the first moment that someone, like, you are walking and you turn around, hey, I hate this right now. That's not, it's something that you really need to build within yourself. You do not become it from day to night. It's the same process, it's part of our evolution, but it is an important characteristic. You become a mixed spirit exactly when you understand the violence and its limits. When you understand that violence is not going to give you, you're never going to achieve this long-term resolution with violence, right? When you understood that harms that working causes and the emotional burden that you put yourself into too, that's what really starts you to realize, because you are living. It's that thing that we say, you can learn through love, you can learn through pain, but most to become a soft person, you had sometimes to hurt yourself and then become soft again. It's like exfoliating. You have all these skins and exfoliate, 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 and then you try to put another one, exfoliate, 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 until you reach this softness, beautiful, glowy skin of your spirit. Right? You have the psychological mark that is presented in all André Louis' work, right? Because there is this other thing about the good. You don't do the good and you stay there waiting for the fruits to come up. If you see all André Louis' work, he's not there looking like, okay, I'm helping him. Now he's going to do the right job. Look what he's going to say now. Oh no, he did not, but I'm waiting here. No, you help, you go. You help, you pass. And if necessary, you'll come back. But you help and you go. And this is part of the evolution as well. We have tendency to stay tight. As a parent, only to imagine the day that my kids will say, Mom, bye, I'm going out by myself. I shake. I have palpitations. But it's going to be a process for me to learn. And I think about it already. It's going to be a learning process, because in that moment on, they will need to make their own decisions. There is a dialogue of Chico Xavier and one of his friends, and his friend is confined. Chico, no, Chico, because my kid is doing this, what should I do? And I say, how old is your kid? And he's like, 23 years old. You do nothing, my dear. You do nothing. You teach him, but he needs to go by himself now. At this point, you cannot resolve things for him. You need to let him go. You need to let him face the consequences, right? And that's what we learn in all our relationships. When you have someone dear that is doing decisions that goes against what you believe is right, you get issues. You get like, how could you do that? Don't do that. Please stop. The wedding, you go there, stop, no marriage in heaven. But it's still is there, and as a loving person, it's not only about, okay, you're gonna do it, and then when something I told you so. That's not how it works. You really need to embrace yourself in a way that you can accept that and say, doesn't matter the resolution, I'm still here for you. I'm still here, right? And we see, like in the history also, most of the peacemakers that came to earth, they were not living recluded and completely isolated. Actually, it was the contrary. They were living in the middle of the violence and truculence and very tough situations. We had so many examples. We have Mahatma Gandhi, we have Martin Luther King, we have other examples that they lived through that violent moment. And in that moment, that's when they shine out and they could teach us so many good lessons. Mahatma Gandhi is one in particular. He had so many encounters where he could show his Meek aspect of him without offending the other. There is this encounter when he's there and like comes this soldier, goes to him and like attack him and like assault him and gives a fist in his face. He falls, he stand up, the guy gives another one, he stand up, and the guy asks to him, who taught you to be this coward? Who taught you to be this coward? And he look at the guy and say, the man that you have in your crucifix in your chest, that's the one who taught me to be the way I am. And the guy start to cry because look at the answer. He's not trying to say because I'm superior and like you are an inferior spirit and I'm here to teach you. No. Who taught you? The guy that you have in your chest, in your crucifix. He was the one teaching me to never revive back, to never fight back, right? And he teaches through experience, right? It's so many things. There is another good thing about him that I read in one of my parents' book, that people went like in these huge lines to talk to Gandhi. And there was this mother, she was in the line for hours with her son. And when came her turn, she looked at Gandhi, Gandhi, I need your help. Okay, my dear, what? My son, he eats too much sugar. He eats too much sugar. Oh, I don't know what to do. Oh, okay. Can you come back in 1 week? And she's like, okay. Another week passed, she goes again, the big line. And she, oh God, I'm back, as you told, like I came last week. My kid takes too much sugar, what should I do? And then he looks to the kid, don't eat too much sugar, kid. And she's like, that's it? You make me like come back 1 week after, wait the whole line again to tell just to him don't eat sugar? No, yes, because the week before I still ate sugar and I ate a lot of sugar, so I spent the whole week without sugar. So now I can tell to the kid don't eat sugar, because last week I couldn't tell him that because I was eating sugar. And that is hard as a parent. So she couldn't understand, because probably in that moment she was like, if he's eating sugar, he's seeing someone eating sugar. There is sugar available for him. So it's a situation that you need to address. But for me to tell this kid not to eat sugar, I need to stop sugar myself first. So let's wait 1 week of detox and come back here. So it's just little things that you do in life, right? Because if you see an example like that, it's not, wow, but he did what he thinks is right. His conviction, that was the right thing to do. I cannot ask anyone to do something that I don't, right? And we need really to realize, the meek of the heart already realized that life has a logic and a time to manifest. Like as humans, our pregnancy takes 9 months. As the Spirit says, we believe like in 7 years to finish an incarnation. So it's so many processes. So to finish the lecture today, I'm going to bring a passage from the book, I don't know, oh my gosh. Book Escritos de Luz. I couldn't find Escritos de Luz by the Spirit Eymael. I can say like Escritos. I couldn't find another like notes of life. I don't know. It's the same. So he has a passage, Meek and humble of heart. So this is my translation, so it has mistakes, and forgive me. But I thought that the content is so important that I brought for us to read here today. When Jesus proclaimed happiness in the meek and humble of heart, he did not propose to exalt idleness, hesitation, and weakness. Many people, on the pretext of deserving the evangelical praise, avoid the highest studies of life and abandon itself to laziness and that faith, believing to cultivate humility. The Master wanted to highlight the balanced souls, the understanding men, and the goodwill creatures who, reaching the value of time, they know how to plant good and wait for the harvest without despair and without violence. Courtesy is the first step of charity. Kindness is the principle of love. Therefore, no one has to wait for the future in order to possess the earth. It is possible to guide it today, holding her favors and talents among our fellow men, worshipping the brotherly kindness. The best daily opportunities in the world belong to those who best know how to be useful for those around their steps. And no one does better by throwing stones of irritation or thorns of bitterness in the path of the companions. Wisdom is calm and hardworking, humble and confident. The spirit of those who plow the earth with Jesus understands that the swamp calls for help, that the fragile plant awaits defense, that the uncultivated bush demands caution, and that the debris of the storm can be converted into valuable manure in the silence of the ground. If you, therefore, intend the evangelical ascent, learn to assist without distinction. On the excuse of worshipping the truth, do not annihilate the promises of love. Hug your scripted with the joy of those who work for faithfulness to the high well, extending the grace of hope for the benefit of all. And one day, all who surround you and accompany you, they will sing the song of bliss that your heart has written and composed in your apparently small acts of brotherhood and sacrifice on behalf of others in your ascension journey to the divine light. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Denise. Do you want to come? Okay. So thank you very much for this inspiring lecture. So I would ask and open the word to you guys if you have any questions or comments, and our friends on the internet too, if there's any comments or questions for today's lecture. No? I have one. Okay, you have one? There's one on the internet? Yes. Yeah. No? Nothing? Okay. So I know we talked about lots of topics today. So patience, meek and humble, like what we need to do and how challenging it is. If we can summarize, you know, for like our daily activities, let's say, for a day-to-day thing, if you can find a way, like what's a tool, something that could help us put this into practice? Because there's a lot of things packaged together into one thing, and I know it's challenging for all of us, right? To put as our, moving forward, say, I'm going to do all this at the same time, right? It may be challenging to think that way. So how do we start? What would be what you would suggest, would say after you read, like what would be the first thing you would do, like the starting point?
For me, is to give the silence the meditative has, in order to avoid this, I think very heavy thing that we need to give an answer right away. And sometimes we need to learn that I need to process. Even if I superficially know, depending on how deep is the question, I need to say, I need a time to process before you give like the superficial answer or deal with a situation in a way that you think that it's going to give regrets to you. Because sometimes we do the thing already knowing they're not supposed to do, just because we think that we need to do something right away. And sometimes it's better not to do nothing and just say, that's a good thing to think about. I need to think about it. And think about it, things before we do it is one big step, because most of us, we have this tendency to act right away.
Yeah. It's like when we reply angry emails, right?
Yeah.
That would be the same thing. It's always a good idea if you reply an angry email to do it next day. And chances are you're going to do a much better job,
Yeah.
right? And you're going to avoid a lot of trouble, particularly when you reply all.
Yes.
Because that's
Reply all.
because our minds always reply all, and that's exactly what we do. Our thoughts, our minds, we're all replying to everyone around us. It's not always directed to one person. So we have to be very careful with that, because our thoughts are real. They are matter. They can, it's not only energy or some like ephemeral things that you can't see. They're actually actions. So every time depending on what you're thinking, you're processing, you're reflecting that into everyone around you. So it's like a reply all button in your email. Okay? So, and I think that's a great point, and that's something that I've learned also a long time ago, is that, if you want to think about something you could do like right away, just how about you take a couple minutes at the end of the day to reflect on what you've done. That's an exercise that we, not only us are telling you to do, like it's something very common, but just think about what you've done in a day. Think about it, and then what can you do next, right?
A psychologist that she's doing these and she's having good reception with patients and other people, and she says, like, in the end of the day, you get a paper and you really write 3 things that you are grateful for, and cannot be like health, general things. It needs to be, I'm thankful for the guy that held the subway door for me when I had my hands full. I'm grateful for the guy, like for this person. It's specific things. And she says that what she notes with her patients is that idea, like really think about gratitude the night before. In the following day, it changed the mindset that people wake up. So a lot of patients with depression and with like mental issues about self-acceptance start to show improvements, because they say that in the following morning they start to wake up with a better mindset about the things they were grateful for the last night. So the last thing they do is to put like these 3 specific things that they are grateful for that day, and that helps them. So it's a way to think about it, right? And instead of highlight, emotionally speaking, we have a tendency to highlight all the bad experiences that we have. The feelings of anger and spite, that's the ones that sometimes we have a tendency to keep in ourselves. And then when we go through this process of gratitude and rationalize and think about them out loud and write and have this process, it helps us really to bring ourselves in this more cooperative and see the doors and little lights that Jesus and like God puts in our way every day, right?
All right. Any more comments, questions? So I'd like to thank you again, Denise. Thank you very much for the inspiring lecture today. And as you know, today we're going to have the lunch and learn, and now we're going to move into have our passes, right? So passes is a transmission of good energies, right? Assisted through the spiritual world and through us, who's delivering the passes. And then right after that, we're going to have our final prayer, some announcements, and then we're going to start the lunch and learn. So we invite you all to stay and enjoy this moment with us. So I want to say bye-bye. Thank you very much for my friends in the internet that are following us every Sunday. It's great to have you guys. And we'll see each other again during the studies and next Sunday. And we're going to dim the lights a little bit just to give us some calmer thoughts in our minds.